Hello, I'm Stephen Cummings, and welcome to another edition of the Citizens Community Forum. Our objective is always to have an engaging, interactive, and civil discourse, and in so doing, help develop a culture of peace and understanding through constructive dialogue and, yes, citizens' participation. Our guests are persons who express views, opinions, and perspectives of their own, and sometimes may not necessarily be that of the FBN network, the Citizens Community Forum, or that of the host. Our topics are also wide-ranging. Discussions at times may be emotionally charged, but surely we can always find common ground and learn from each other, irrespective of our differing views. Now, the global economy has shown remarkable resilience throughout the pandemic, but history would also remind us that real recovery also depends on preparedness, having a structured plan, adaptability, and decisive decision-making. Many parts of the world look forward to an end to what can be described as a mentally and emotionally bruising 48 months of a global pandemic. But while we wait, there are many scars, social scars, that remain on societies, and perhaps being among the most impacted are our most vulnerable, among them being the aged and elderly. As it relates to Trinidad and Tobago, though, one arm of the state, the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, and more specifically, the Division of Aging, is charged with the responsibility of treating with the aged. There are many questions as to how the state has been responding to this sector of our population. Information provided back in 2011 by the Central Statistical Office told us Trinidad and Tobago's older persons, that is aged 60 years and over, represent some 12% or 156,000 of the total population, of which 9% are over 65 years. The report further stated that the elderly population is projected to be 17.7% in 2025 and expected to increase to 30.1% in 2050. Do we have any updated data on the status of the aged in Trinidad and Tobago? What are some of the policies that speak to the protection and the caring for our seniors? When we look at what we have as a society, what are among the key issues impacting the elderly in Trinidad and Tobago, and how have we been responding as a society? This and many questions we hope to address during the program at this time. And our topic this time is focus on Trinidad and Tobago, and looking at the aging, what some people may describe as an aging population, but certainly our topic at this time is focus on a Trinidad and Tobago aging population, a state's response. And to help discuss the issues, I have with me Director of Aging of the Division of Aging, Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, Dr. Blake. Welcome to the Citizens Community Forum.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cummings, and a warm welcome also to your listeners, who I know extend not locally alone, but overseas. So hello, everyone.
And thank you for joining us. Dr. Blake, we want to get right into the program at this time. When we look at Trinidad and Tobago, and I want to sort of get a kind of perspective as to to lay the groundwork for our discussion. The Ministry of Social Development and specifically the Division of Aging, no doubt you would have been called out, probably the most called out of ministries during the last 2 years or so of a pandemic. What has it been like for the Division of Aging, and maybe to a wider extent the Ministry of Social Development?
Well, thank you for that question. We have indeed been on the ground, even though the pandemic requires that we maintain a certain measure of physical distance from our clients, our senior citizens, because of their vulnerability. So we have had to use creative measures to respond to their needs given our mandate. So a key mechanism that we use to provide services to the older persons is our Older Persons Information Center. It is a toll-free hotline, 800 OPIC, where our seniors can, or their carers or their friends and the loved ones can contact us to express either a need, a request for services. They may lodge a complaint about elder abuse, or they may require information otherwise about the aging population. So once we get those calls, we would respond accordingly. Either we will begin our pre-screening, our data gathering via phone, via the internet, but of course we know that our seniors may not necessarily engage us that way. And yes, we do field investigation, as well, following the COVID-19 protocols.
All right, so that you have had some challenges as well, but you're saying that the ministry has been able to respond, or specifically the department has been able to respond to those the varying the dynamics in the country, I suppose not only in the country but in the world, in the Caribbean. Trinidad and Tobago is not unique in that sense. Looking back over the past almost 2 years, many governments, administrations have had to become as creative as they possibly can. Certainly.
Most definitely. And so I would say that it is a ministry-wide, statewide, nationwide approach with regards to this pandemic. And we are indeed first responders in a way, partnering with the Ministry of Health, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, and other stakeholders to be able to respond and address whatever concerns our elders may have. So, we're out there in the week, on the weekends, after hours. Sometimes, it's for a very positive initiative. For instance, we have launched our National Centenarian Program.
Yes, which is something. Something that I'd want to talk with you about a little later on in the program.
Sure.
Because that seems to be a novel program that I don't think that I've actually witnessed or heard or seen something of that nature. Coming out of the ministry. But as I said, we'll talk more about that a little later on in the program. And we just like to remind our listeners and our viewers that this is the Citizens Community Forum. I'm Stephen Cummings. Our topic at this time focus on a Trinidad and Tobago aging population, state's response. And I have with me Dr. Hyacinth Blake, Director, Division of Aging, Ministry of Social Development and Family Services. Dr. Blake, in my opening, I reference a very important point. Information provided back in 2011, which I looked at, and that actually came out of the Central Statistical Office. Do we have any updated data on the status of the aged in Trinidad and Tobago?
Actually, I was very impressed by your statistical knowledge, Mr. Cummings. Yes, the last census was in 2011, and there would have been population and housing estimates subsequently, and the figures remain about the same. In that, we are an aging population for a while now, because our population of older persons 60 years and over exceeds 10%. As you rightly said, that in 2011, it was about 13%. By 2025, it will be about 17.7%, and by 2050, it will be as much as 30%. And so those are the current projections, even after post-2011, with regards to the projections. Of course, with the pandemic, given how our elders would have been affected, there might be some variation, but thankfully, even though it is we have to be mindful about the impact on our older persons. In Trinidad and Tobago, it is not as bad, I would say, as in other regions. We have been lucky to nip certain things in the bud quickly, but we do have to be mindful about the variation as a result of the pandemic. So the figures will come eventually.
Right. So we talk about an aging population, but we also talk about we're also talking about a population that is living longer. I've heard where because of the advancement in medicine and technology, you've had persons living much longer.
This is true, and we cannot take for granted that Trinidad and Tobago has free public health care. There are many countries that do not have that. So yes, we do generally see our elders, based on research, accessing both public health care and private health care, but preventative mechanisms, approaches, strategies as well as interventions when persons have already been diagnosed or have a health challenge. That's very important in terms of longevity. And then we are a very educated population. So
Yes.
persons are aware about, living a lifestyle that would allow for longevity based on their diet, exercise, their mental health. So we have those advantages, having been described, whether you believe it or not, as a highly developed country, at least, pre-pandemic, because of our oil reserves and our natural resources. But as you said, our human resource is what is most critical. And we are very creative people, and I think that has contributed to our longevity.
All right, Dr. Blake, I want to ask you, what are are among some of the key issues, I would say, impacting the elderly in Trinidad and Tobago, and how have we been able, how have we really been responding as a society? I've heard of issues of loneliness, dementia, mental, emotional issues. How have we really been responding, and more specifically, as a ministry, as a department? What are some of the programs that are in place, as a response to some of those issues in Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, loneliness is in fact one of the major social issues facing our senior citizens. The research done by Dr. Joan Rawlins would have highlighted, and others, Dr. Ronald Marshall, they would have noted and observed that loneliness is affecting our seniors, whether or not they're in residential care, even amidst their relatives in the private home. You find that not having a meal with your elder is a significant issue that may make them feel excluded and not integrated even into their own family. So some of the ways that we address that, especially when we do our public awareness campaigns, for instance, I was on the Legacy program with Uncle Brother on 98.1 in October when we were promoting United Nations International Day of Older Persons, hashtag Halo 2, where we indicated that, we want our citizens to honor, appreciate, and love our older persons, try to connect with them even safely during the pandemic, using technology, encouraging them to use it. So that's one of the ways that we have done that. It's difficult to meet in person, we know, but we have encouraged the population to use those creative approaches and give them guidance accordingly. And then there is the issue, unfortunately, of elder abuse. In Trinidad and Tobago, using the information from the Crime and Problem Analysis Unit of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, on average, it's at about 2,000 persons per year, about elder persons, who would have lodged a complaint about some form of abuse.
Those are recent statistics, right?
That's the average from 2014 to present. On average, it's about 2,000 cases per year. And based on the United Nations Information and World Health Organization, we know only 1 in 24 cases of elder abuse are actually reported. So when you ramp up, it might seem, oh, it's only 2,000, but one act of elder abuse, whether it's physical,
but it's always said, yes,
sexual,
that one is too many.
Exactly. And so because of the significant underreporting, it is something that we are concerned about. So that, as I mentioned earlier, the Older Persons Information Center is one of the mechanisms whereby members of the public contact the division, and we would respond if there are complaints about abuse, be it in the private residence or in a residential care facility, and to action that investigation so that we can alleviate or prevent or mitigate against elder abuse happening. We do have to engage, given the current legislative framework, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, in particular, the Gender-Based Domestic Violence Unit, because to access the private residence, we basically have to position ourselves in accordance with the Domestic Violence Act. The Victim and Witness Support Unit also provides support, and of course, within the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, based on the findings of the investigation, we would refer the client and liaise with our partners for various interventions, be it counseling, be it relocation, and so on. And Ministry of Housing also is a key partner as well.
All right. And you're listening to and viewing the Citizens Community Forum. I'm Stephen Cummings. Our topic at this time, focus on Trinidad and Tobago aging population, a state's response. I have with me Dr. Hyacinth Blake, Director, Division of Aging, Ministry of Social Development and Family Services. Dr. Blake, I was going to ask you about, whether there is a national plan on aging for Trinidad and Tobago. Now, you have given us a few areas there in terms of your response mechanism, but I want to sort of ask you directly about an overarching national plan for the age in Trinidad and Tobago? Is there such a plan?
What we have is a national policy on aging that was established and approved by Cabinet after extensive stakeholder consultation. That would have been formulated in 2007. And we are currently, because of the time frame that the policy was developed, we are making it more current. And so internally within the ministry, we have a committee where the Division of Aging chairs in collaboration with the inputs from our policy unit, social research, etc., to revise and review this policy. And then, of course, we will transition to having the draft document have public consultations on those. So we are working towards having a revised policy and an implementation plan that we are planning to have that completed during this calendar year.
Because, there's always been the criticism, Dr. Blake, about, wonderful plans that we have as a society. I suppose not just, here in Trinidad and Tobago, but other places in the world, that you have wonderful, designed plans. And sometimes, you have an issue where implementation is concerned. Many times, as a matter of fact, you hear people complain about, the implementation of some of those plans and programs and initiative. Is there a timeline? Do you see a timeline within which we can have maybe, if not a finalization, close to a final document in this regard, as we talk about a national plan for aging in Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, we envision that it will be completed at the end of this calendar year, but we must be mindful of the fact that we have to consider the environment in which we are in at present. So yes, we have a target, but we have to maintain some measure of flexibility given the pandemic, given the fact that it is a policy that would require consultation, and we want to engage as many persons as possible, especially based on the point that you're given. You just gave, which is that for us to really implement and not just have a plan that collects dust on the shelves, everyone must recognize that we are
wonderful. We are wonderful at planning. I've seen some wonderful designs, Dr. Blake, not just relative to your department or your ministry. I've seen it in different sectors of the society, whether it be in health, whether it be in other areas. But for some reason, those plans tend to get stuck. As you said, we have to sometimes go back 10 and 15 years to dust them off. The cobwebs, gather, and we don't seem to be, moving the needle, and that has always been a criticism. So, I wanted to ask you about, treating with that, and how soon can we see any kind of realization of those policies which we have here in Trinidad and Tobago to treat with the aged. But looking at this further, I've also been hearing of an increase in our age, as I said before, our global population that translates certainly to long-term care. In fact, one of the report I saw said that there was some 7.7% of GDP being spent on pensions in developed countries, and 15% by 2050, and approximately 25% on GDP will be spent, according to the report that I was looking at, will be spent on pension and healthcare by 2050. So that, when we look at our aging population, Dr. Blake, we do see where there are concerns in terms of sustainability. We do have a pension plan, pension system in Trinidad and Tobago that I suppose everybody is familiar with. And when we look at the age, we have a growing aged population. But certainly, it has to be more than just pension, Dr. Blake. I wanted to get from you, what are some of the other things that are being done to treat with the age, to make them feel a little more inclusive in the society? Because what happens is that we've heard it all, we've seen it all the time, that they are left alone, in their 80s and sometimes 90s. Their children would have gone off, in other careers, and just to sort of to keep them and to have that sort of sustainability and not necessarily have to be dependent on a pension. What are some of those creative things that the ministry has been doing, or maybe you've been seeing that can be done to be able to keep our seniors active and productive as well, and not necessarily have to be dependent. We're talking about self-sufficiency here, and I know that that's one of the one of your mandates to have persons, no matter what age they are, to be self-sufficient and less dependent on the state, for example.
Well, I want to say that a key role of the division is public awareness. So we have been involved in that in different spheres in terms of different areas of focus, be it on elder abuse prevention and even empowerment of our older persons. As I said,
That's the term
the
that I was looking
hashtag.
for, empowerment and self-sufficiency, yes.
Correct. So our
Even
hashtag
at the
Halo
age of 90,
initiative.
huh? Even at the age of
Right.
90.
And 100 and
Yes.
over.
Yes. And we're going to be
So we've
talking about the
had,
centenarians in a short
sure,
while,
I
but
know we'll
I
get
would
to
allow
it.
you to develop that point.
Of course, I'm not, yes. So the hashtag Halo is one of the initiatives that we have used in recent times to adjust to the challenges that we have during the pandemic, where we engage both our elders and younger persons in the population, those under 60, to partner and to ensure that our older persons during this pandemic are not left alone, are not forgotten. So that is the primary focus that we have taken to activate the population and engage them in including our elders. Because the reality is, back to your point about the documents on the shelf, usually it's because there's this misconception that policy is government alone. And government alone, as you mentioned, you'll be talking about self-sufficiency, not just
Yes.
depending on pensions,
Mm-hmm.
though we cannot forget the fact that Trinidad and Tobago is a forerunner because financial independence is critical. Many of our elders, during the times that they lived in, did not have formal employment that we do. And even if they did, the quality or quantum of the pension that they would have had is very small when you consider the current standard of living. So we cannot minimize the importance of both a contributory and non-contributory pension that this country has, because there are many countries where that is not even available. And that in itself is empowering. But we agree that we need to consider, especially with longevity, the issue of having our elders engaged. And the reality is, they are. Many of the coaches, many of the retirees, for instance, are involved in mentoring.
And a
Once
call
they're
back,
well enabled,
yes, a call back into service, yes, and that's the point that I was getting to, Dr. Blake.
Correct. And so and again, it's not only the division of aging. The division of aging takes an overarching view as to what's happening in the nation to monitor and evaluate how aging matters, aging issues, and the rights of our seniors are realized through the different arms of the society, state, civil society, the media, etc. Right? And so this is why it's important to maintain the collaboration, and we are working towards achieving that through consultations, through public education and awareness, and saying that even our elders, our young persons, they can be the persons who are initiating these programs and initiatives. They can be working from the NGO up, and making these things manifest in the nation.
Right. And you're listening to and viewing the Citizens Community Forum. Stephen Cummings. Our topic at this time, focus on a Trinidad and Tobago aging population, a state's response. I have with me Dr. Hyacinth Blake, Director, Division of Aging, Ministry of Social Development and Family Services. Dr. Blake, I want to go into that centenarian program initiative. Tell us a little more about that, how that came about, and what has been happening since the launch of that program.
So Senator, the Honorable Donna Cox, who is the Minister of Social Development and Family Services, she's very passionate about our elders, and they are a priority for her, especially with her being a family carer as well. And, even more objectively, looking at the situation where we have an aging population and the impacts of the pandemic, this is a really good time to focus on the fact that we have elders living long in this country. And we need to be able to learn from their experience and how they have been able to thrive and be resilient amidst all the other challenges. They have survived the Spanish flu, they have survived world wars, and we can learn from them.
And a few generations, and a few generations as well. But go ahead, yes.
Yes. And so we want to capture their stories. We want to honor them. We want to let them know that they are not forgotten. So as of the 13th of December, 2021, we launched our National Centenarians Registry, and we encourage the friends and relatives of our centenarians to please put their name into that registry
Is that a
via
registry
our.
growing? Is that a registry growing?
Yes, it
Yeah,
is
okay.
growing.
Okay.
And so, daily, weekly, daily, we check it to see if we have new registrants, but we would want more persons to access the registry. So we're really glad for the opportunity to promote it here and elsewhere.
Right.
So
And
that persons can call the toll-free hotline, because we know not everyone would want to go onto the internet or social media pages. Call 800 OPIC to access. That's 800-6742, and one of the inspectors or business operating assistants can assist with registering you. Or you can go onto the ministry's webpage at www.social.gov.tt. And what we do, one of our platinum sponsors is Kiss Baking Company Limited. They had before been giving cakes to centenarians, and they have partnered with us on this initiative. So when our centenarians, and we want to say register from 99 years and over,
okay.
yes, so that we can plan ahead. We make limited visits because of the pandemic, or otherwise we arrange the delivery of a hamper, a cake, and other tokens to the centenarians. And we have several activities coming up throughout the course of the year for them.
And I'm sure that we'll have an opportunity to talk with you some
Sure.
more on those activities as you launch a little more into the centenarian initiative. We also just like to remind our listeners and our viewers that this is the Citizens Community Forum. I'm Stephen Cummings. We are talking with Dr. Hyacinth Blake, Director Aging, Ministry of Social Development and Ministry of Social Development and Family Services in the Division of Aging. And of course, we are talking very, we're looking at some of these looking at our social issues as they impact our aged and our elderly seniors here in Trinidad and Tobago. Dr. Blake, we are going to have to take a short break in a while. But before we go to the break, I just wanted to find out from you. There was some information in the past about the development of mental clinics, and I remember reading a document that talked about the decline in mental abilities which occur among people over 60, and there was talk about mental clinics. What has that program come off? Do you have those do you have clinics across the country? What has been done in terms of responding to things like dementia and so on?
Well, I believe that we do still have those services through our Ministry of Health. They are supposed to be decentralized in the provision of that, because when it comes to the programs that the Division of Aging has, we provide residential care services through our community care program for socially displaced seniors. And there are some of them who have a mental diagnosis, and we do note that they do receive the care and support from the mental health providers through the Ministry of Health. So I can speak to that, but what I would say is that the main challenges that we have observed in terms of our elders, based on the reports from Dr. Lafoucade at Health and Education Unit in the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine, and other health practitioners over the years, is the non-communicable diseases, which in itself, yes, which in itself may contribute to the development of dementia and Alzheimer's. So you find that it is more the NCDs that we need to give attention to, though of course we cannot neglect the fact that Alzheimer's and dementia may also impact on the well-being of our seniors. And part of that, in terms of the planning, we mentioned the policy on aging that is being reviewed and revised and so on. There are creative ways to address persons having forgetfulness issues and challenges. There are dementia villages, or those sorts of things that are being done internationally, and we may want to consider that if that could possibly work here.
All right. And again, this is the Citizens Community Forum. I'm Stephen Cummings. I'm talking with Dr. Hyacinth Blake, Director, Division of Aging, Ministry of Social Development and Family Services. We have to take a short break now. Dr. Blake, we would want to have you hold for just a moment longer. I think there's so much that we haven't touched on as yet relative to this topic, but we want to take a short break now and come right back.
Sure.
Be part of the Citizens Community Forum, a place where we bring to light and discuss critical community, social and national issues, discussions on health, leadership, governance, crime, education and social justice.
Best candidate for the job, and therefore this government demonstrates that it is prepared to walk the walk as well as talk the talk.
What do we have today? We have persons sitting in positions, sitting in a cabinet, who are saying today is today and yesterday is yesterday.
Let's discuss the issues. Let's dialogue towards developing a deeper understanding, fostering an atmosphere of peace, all towards creating better, stronger families and communities. Right here, every Wednesday, 8 to 9 p.m. The Citizens Community Forum. Your host, Stephen Cummings. Be part of the Citizens Community Forum, a place where we bring to light and discuss critical community, social and national issues, discussions on health, leadership, governance, crime, education and social justice. Do you feel that there is merit, Mr. Nanku, in that view that there's some apparent conspiracy against trade unions? I might be putting you on the spot, but...
No. As I said, I'm a trade unionist. I came from the bowels of the trade union movement. So I speak openly with the guys. No, Stephen, I would not use a strong word as conspiracy. I would say that some of the matters that are before us, there is validity in it, okay? Outstanding wage negotiations.
We are in a new space, a new way where it's not the hard and fast, I am the boss, or I am the employee and have my right. There is need for that rapport together now. We have to mature to that new level.
It does not
resolving workplace issues.
It does not always have to be adversarial.
I believe that we were not able to persuade the court on a very clear fact. And the fact is that the minister and his agents and servants, Litco and contractors, have been conducting work at many points along the David to Mondesir interchange, particularly the Faizabad to Mondesir area. And this was not the view of the court. I think that the court erred in not fully looking at the facts before it, and we shall be bringing that specific matter when we do appeal.
Every Wednesday, 8 to 9 p.m., the Citizens Community Forum. Your host, Stephen Cummings.
We might shift from focusing on whole language approaches to focusing on developing phonemic awareness. So we're just teaching phonics, and then the role of comprehension, the vocabulary development, making sure students can visualize when they read. We're not addressing those needs. So you're right.
And as a matter of fact, I don't know, Stephen, if you know this, but there are some places in the States where the legal drinking age is 21 and not 18. Even though there are persons advocating for our age of consent to be dropped back to 16.
You are dealing with developmental stages of learning. Should it start at the primary, secondary? Where should it start?
Very, very good question.
So there are studies that are being done. The thing about it, Mr. Cummings, let's be honest, how many people really sit and read those studies, or even, I mean, a lot of things are coming in different forms. A lot of the data, a lot of the research is coming in video forms and so on. In our own society, how has research been articulated on this pandemic?
Every Wednesday, 8 to 9 p.m., the Citizens Community Forum. Your host, Stephen Cummings.
You know something that bothers me? People want change and cannot get it peacefully. They resort to violence in order to get that change. Got the history of the world, and you see that is what is taking place.
The difference is that a country like the United States could simply print money, trillions of dollars of support, social support, business support. They're talking about another $2 trillion. So they could print money. We can't do that. If we do that, then we get inflation. So our deficit is problematic.
And welcome back to the Citizens Community Forum. I'm Stephen Cummings, talking at this time with Dr. Hyacinth Blake, Director in the Ministry of Social Development and Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, Division of Aging. And we just want to, as we close off this segment of the program, Dr. Blake, we just wanted, if you can just, give us some closing remarks on this, business of treating and responding to the aged, elderly, seniors in Trinidad and Tobago. Yes, we have a policy, and you have outlined many things that are being done in terms of the ministries and the state's response. But where would you like to see your specific or particular division in probably the next 10 or 20 years? Do you have a vision for the Ministry or the Department of Aging in Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, we would want to consult with the wider community as to what they would want from a division of aging. It may be there have been some consideration of having a citizens parliament run by our seniors. We've actually done that in times past. It may be that we want to transition to an authority similar to the Children's Authority so that we have greater reach. But there would need, no matter what form that the division of aging takes, there needs to be more involvement of our seniors at the highest level of planning. And we're not just talking about parliamentarians. Sometimes people say that seniors retire and they resign, and as you mentioned earlier, many of them who have worked in the public service, for instance, are called back in to continue to work. And given the considerations, nothing is still being discussed. Even the acting Prime Minister, the Honorable Cummings, would have mentioned that there will be consultation about the employment age being extended. It would involve, we are a democratic society, more consultation. So my vision is that this will be a society of all ages, and so that the Division of Aging will reflect that with greater involvement of the national community.
Because Dr. Blake, we all get to that stage. We all well, fortunately, a lot of us have been getting to that centenarian area, and of course, we get to that point at some moment in our lives. So I guess this is relative to just about every member of the population. When we talk about aging, there has to be a serious focus from the society, certainly.
And as we live longer, the reality is that even persons who care for our seniors need support. So we have to have that multidimensional approach, even while we work towards having our seniors be independent and empowered, that we are a village. And even the younger cohorts, we no man is an island, no woman is an island. So this is why even in our plans for the National Centenarian Program, for example, we will be having those kinds of public awareness programs, because family caregivers need support as well. Just as how we are first responders, they are primary responders when it comes to our elders. So that we want to equip them and show that there needs to be that collaboration, that sensitivity, because we're not trying to be pie in the sky. We know sometimes relationships are not always straightforward or pleasant, but we would want to ensure that as far as possible they are.
All right. And Dr. Blake, thank you so much for taking the time to sit with us on the Citizens Community Forum. It has been a pleasure to have you, and we want to leave the lines of communication open so that you can come back again, and we can continue the discussion on aging. And we can, I suppose, go into some more areas, of course, look at some of the plans and programs that you have for our seniors and elderly, the aged in Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you so much again, Dr. Blake.
Thank you for having me, and best wishes to you and your listeners.
Dr. Blake there, Hyacinth Blake of the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, and Director in the Division of Aging, talking with us there. Our topic, focus on a Trinidad and Tobago aging population, a state's response. Well, that's our program at this time. Of course, we will be back for yet another segment. Of course, we are on every Wednesday. Of course, we will be on those days, we deal with so many different issues and different matters as they impact the society, impact Trinidad and Tobago, the region, and even possibly the world. So until our next program, I'm Stephen Cummings. See you next Wednesday. It was a famous poet who once said, "They came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me." Words there from famous poet Martin Niemöller, 1892 to 1984.